So I recently decided to watch the entire catalog of James Bond movies. Again, all 24 of them. And also recently I decided to start a YouTube channel where I give some kind of reviews on movies I've seen. And I thought, hey, this is a good place to start. These videos are solely based on my opinions. That being said, you can voice your own opinions in the comments below. Please, if you also like the video, give it a thumbs up and stick around until the end of the video despite the length. And also don't forget to subscribe. I'm thinking about making this a regular thing and I can't do this without you. First, a little background. I always love watching James Bond movies. Watching those movies as a kid made me love watching movies in the first place. Those movies provide a sense of fun and adventure, interesting casts of characters, mind-blowing actions and stunts, and whatever this is. And the thing that always captivated me especially was the James Bond character. He's cool and calculating, confident even in the face of danger, travels all the exotic locations. He has all the cool cars, gadgets. He gets the girls and saves the day, you know the rest. And for a 10-year-old kid, I wanted to be just like him. I mean, who wouldn't? The guy is the ultimate male fantasy. Safe to say I always had fun watching these movies. Even when a movie in the franchise is bad, I always do find a thing or two to admire about it. I've watched every single movie in the franchise, even including Never Say Never Again, with the exception of the Casino Royale movie from the 50s. So it's been 14 years now since Casino Royale was released back in 2006. This movie is of course regarded by many fans as one of the best in the franchise, which is weird considering the backlash the movie received on its release, especially with the casting of Daniel Craig as James Bond. Some claim he was lacking in the size department, others claim he had blue eyes therefore he could not be James Bond, or something like that. I don't know, the internet is weird. But most of them quickly changed their mind after seeing the movie and seeing how good he was in this role. And as we come closer to the release of yet another Bond movie this November with the title No Time to Die, which features the return of Daniel Craig in the role and some other people, I thought now would be the perfect time for us to take a look back at his first outing as Bond and see whether or not this movie is any good. So the film kicks off with a dramatic pre-title sequence in Prague as James Bond is sent to kill a rogue MI6 agent. During this scene, he also recounts killing one of his contracts in an earlier scene, in one of the most brutal fight scenes I've seen in a James Bond movie. And this was actually Bond's first professional kill. He kills Dryden, the rogue agent, and with that becomes a 00 agent, having 2 confirmed kills under his name.
Yes. Considerably.
After a really good opening song, we are off to Uganda, where we are introduced to the main villain of the movie called Lashif, a private banker to the world's terrorist, and also working with a mysterious organization that we don't know much about at this point. He's also there with a mysterious gentleman called Mr. White, who is also part of this organization. Lashif is given a large sum of money to invest in his organization by Mr. Obano, a Ugandan freedom fighter, with the guarantee that the money will be safe.
I want no risk in the portfolio.
Agreed.
But instead, Lashif decides to use the money to bet on the failure of a new airline company, the Starfleet, which is set to debut a prototype plane in a couple of days, since he has insider knowledge of a terrorist attack planned against it. After that, we meet with James Bond in his first mission as a 00 agent. He's on the trail of a bomb maker named Molaka in Madagascar, and after what I consider one of the best chase scenes in the franchise, Bond ends up killing Molaka despite orders to bring him alive, and also bombs an embassy in the process, so we are off to a good start. We catch up with M, played again by Judi Dench. She's furious at Bond's actions in Madagascar. Bond uses Molaka's cell phone to track a man called Alex Dimitrios, whom he finds in the Bahamas. Bond ends up beating Dimitrios in a poker game, winning his car in the process, which ends up being the iconic Aston Martin DB5 from the classic movies. And also in typical Bond fashion, he also seduces his wife and learns that Dimitrios is heading to Miami, so he follows him there and kills him. Bond then spoils the plan to attack the Sky Fleet in another intense action scene, making Lashif lose all the money he used to bet on the stock market earlier. In an attempt to recover his money, Lashif sets up a high-stakes poker game at the Casino Royale in Montenegro. Bond is placed in the game by MI6 since he is the best player in the service. He is sent to defeat Lashif, forcing him to seek refuge to the British government in exchange for information about the mysterious organization he's working with, since all his debtors will want to kill him for losing their money, along for the bride is Vesper Lind, our main Bond girl in this movie, played here by Eva Green. She is an agent representing the Treasury, which is financing Bond's involvement in the game. They also meet up with Mathis, who is their contractor at Montenegro. During the beginning of the game, Bond is able to read Lashif's strategy, and all seems well, for now at least. Urbano and his men attack Lashif in his room during the break, demanding their money, but he is able to strike a deal with them, which allows him to continue playing. They spot Bond on their way out, and they get into another brutal fight scene, which ends up with Bond killing Urbano. Bond is shown cleaning his wounds afterwards and thinking about his actions while having a drink. Bond then comforts Vesper Lind in the shower, who is traumatized after witnessing Bond kill Urbano. Back to the game, Bond is outsmarted and loses to Lashif, taking him out of the game. Vesper tells Bond he's unable to give him extra money to buy in, and in blind rage, Bond attempts to kill Lashif, but is stopped by CIA agent Felix Leiter.
Right. Sorry, I should have introduced myself, seeing as we're related. Felix Leiter. A brother from Langley.
You remember him? He decides to give Bond the extra $5 million to continue with the game, with the condition that the CIA bring him in instead of the British government when he loses. In one final attempt to remove Bond from the game, Lashif poisons him, but Bond just happens to have an antidote in his car, and Vesper Lind manages to save him in the nick of time. Pretty convenient, don't you think?
You okay?
Bond returns and finally beats Lashif with a straight flush. Yeah, I don't know what that is either. Winning the game and the $115 million. A desperate Lashif kidnaps Vesper and uses him to capture Bond in a spectacular car crash. He must have known somehow that Bond would survive or something. Lashif reveals that Mathis was actually his ally and tortures Bond for the password of the account with the money in a brutal scene that is hard to watch for obvious reasons. Bond refuses to talk, and Lashif threatens to cut off his penis. Wait, what? A quick reminder, this is supposed to be a PG James Bond movie, if I'm not mistaken. Thankfully, before he does that, Mr. White kills him, claiming he's become a liability to the organization.
Tell them I'll get the money.
Money isn't as valuable to our organization as knowing who to trust.
Bond is saved and taken to the hospital where he recovers. Bond has Mathis arrested and transfers the winnings to the Treasury. As he is recovering, Bond and Vesper fall in love and develop a romantic relationship.
You love me.
Enough to quit and float around the world with you until one of us has to find an honest job.
Bond decides to quit the service and spend time with Vesper in Venice. M calls Bond and reveals the money was never deposited, and Bond realizes he's been betrayed by Vesper. Bond follows Vesper to the drop-off point, where she was supposed to deliver the money to some men. He makes his presence known, and we get into a huge action set piece in a sinking building.
Allow me.
Vesper drowns herself in an elevator, and Bond is unable to save her despite his efforts. During this, Mr. White escapes with the money. M later reveals to Bond that the mysterious organization blackmailed Vesper Lind to become a double agent, threatening to kill her boyfriend. M also implies that she made a deal with the same mysterious organization, giving them the money in exchange for Bond's Bond's life.
Get back as soon as you can. We need you. If you do need time.
Why should I need more time? Job's done. The bitch is dead.
Bond finds a message left for him by Vesper and uses it to track down Mr. White. Bond finds Mr. White and shoots him in the leg. And finally, after 2+ hours, we get the iconic line as the film ends with the classic Bond theme.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
So that was Casino Royale. Is it a good movie? Well, yes. Most Bond fans will agree with me that this is one of the best movies in the over 50-year-old franchise. The cinematography in this movie is beautiful. It's not as pretty as, let's say, Skyfall, but there are some good shots here and there, like the Aston Martin crash scene, which was done all in one take. The acting in the movie is also really good. Daniel Craig is so good in this movie. He provides an edge to the character that has been absent for a while now, especially in the Roger Moore days. This is also in tune with the realistic nature the film was going for, as they focus more on the character and story rather than cool gadgets and terrible CGI as seen in the previous movie. From the opening bathroom fight scene, you immediately buy into the fact that this guy is a stone-cold assassin who will not hesitate to kill in cold blood, despite having internal conflicts about it later on.
Doesn't bother you killing those people?
I wouldn't be very good at my job if it did.
He also provides a level of humanity to the character, like in the scene where he is cleaning his wounds, trying to drown his pain by having a drink, and thinking about whether or not he wants to continue doing this. It's a really good character moment, the likes of which has never been seen in this capacity before. Also in the end, where he gets betrayed by the woman he loves, you start to see him become cold, emotionally distant in his interaction. This explains throughout the series why he is always sleeping around and doesn't get attached to just any one woman. And that's just how James Bond is supposed to be. He's not lacking in the wit and humor as well. He delivers some of my favorite funny lines in the entire series.
I'm sorry. That last hand nearly killed me.
Now the whole world's gonna know that you died scratching my balls.
I guess I like his portrayal because it's reminiscent of the Timothy Dalton days in the 80s, since I consider him my favorite James Bond, and I do see similarities between the two. With Bond, it depends with what you like to see in the character. If you prefer the cool male fantasy figures, then you have your Pierce Brosnan and Sean Connery. If you prefer a more light-hearted and witty interpretation of the character, you have Roger Moore's interpretation. If you prefer a serious professional with a darker edge, you get Dalton and Craig. And if you prefer Australians, well, you get Lazenby. The supporting characters and casts are also pretty good. Le Chiffre is a really good villain. They try to make him sympathetic in the second half of the movie, as he's just trying to pay up his debts, which is very uncommon for most Bond movies. But in the first half, he's presented as a menacing figure behind an even more menacing organization. And Mads Mikkelsen's acting in this role also deserves credit. Vesper Lind is one of my favorite Bond girls, not your typical badass femme fatale. She's also not your typical damsels in distress with no character either. They give her an interesting backstory and character. She is depicted as a smart woman who doesn't quickly fall for James Bond's charm and turns him down initially. This sounds familiar. In fact, she is even repulsed by his attitude in the beginning.
Take the next one. There isn't enough room for me and your ego.
This ultimately leads to some good back and forth banter between the two. I like the scene of them trying to read each other on the train, and the look Bond has at the end when she leaves him speechless, for he's finally met a woman that has managed to challenge him psychologically. The tragic love story is also built up okay, but I do admit that it does seem a little bit rushed at some points. Nevertheless, they managed to make me invested in it. Of course, this is not the first time that this has been done in a James Bond movie, but I would argue that this one is better. Judi Dench is also good playing M as always. She is my second favorite M, behind the legendary Bernard Lee of course. Her relationship with Bond is fleshed out even more in the later films, until she dies in Skyfall. Not in real life, in the movies. She's still making whatever this is. She also has a kind of maternal relationship with James Bond, which I like. This film also being a reboot, I like the fact that they kept away most of the familiar James Bond tropes we've come to expect, like the opening gun barrel scene in the beginning, the silhouettes of naked dancing chicks in the title song, Miss Moneypenny, and a proper kill scene. Of course, these tropes will appear in later movies, but I'm glad they left them out here. I also appreciate the fact that they saved the main Bond theme until the end of the movie, indicating a sort of climactic resolution for the character as he becomes the James Bond we all know and love. The action scenes are also pretty well done and made even more intense by David Arnold's score. David Arnold has been with the franchise since the Pierce Brosnan days, and this is one of my favorite scores he's done for the James Bond movies. I think you can find the score somewhere on YouTube. I also like the opening song performed by Chris Cornell. It's one of my favorites, and an instrumental version is played throughout the film as they did not want to use the main Bond theme, this being an origin story and all. There's also some deleted scenes from the movie, which I think some were pretty good, but were clearly cut out of the film for pacing issues. They did make an effort to continue with the story with the next movie, Quantum of Solace, but I find that movie more disappointing with every viewing. It has a lot of action scenes, but not a lot in terms of plot. A follow-up was released in 2012 in the form of Skyfall, which I really like, and I think it's a good example for a modern James Bond movie. Spectre was also released in 2015. I thought the movie was okay, the pacing was awful, and for the most part I do find it dull, but that's a topic for another video. I really can't find a lot of things to hate about this movie. I'm pretty sure there's something I'm missing here and there, because no movie is perfect. But ultimately, I do enjoy this movie every time I come back to watch it. I do think it's one of the best James Bond movies of all time. It's actually my second favorite behind License to Kill. It's a damn good origin story for the James Bond character. And my favorite James Bond movie directed by Martin Campbell. As you all know, he's directed 2 James Bond movies. Nothing Against GoldenEye, which is another really good movie that I highly recommend. But ultimately, this one is my favorite of the two. It's not only a classic Bond movie, but a damn good action movie, and definitely deserves to get a recommendation on this channel. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Please like, share, subscribe. Catch you next time.